right, uncertainty is the last thing that our healthcare system needs right now. It will drive price increases more than anything else. And now that the GOP bill has died, that's exactly what we have, is more uncertainty. So what will happen next? Well, there is a call to repeal without replacing. There was a tweet just sent out. Republicans should just repeal failing Obamacare now and work on a new health care plan that will start from a clean slate. Dems will join in. This comes from the president. Is that the way forward? Joining us now, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Always good to see you, sir. The Freedom Caucus has a different idea, which is, look, let's just do a straight repeal bill right now, get an up and down vote on it, and move from there. Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, totally in favor of that, because, Chris, that's what we told the American people we were going to do. Remember, our repeal legislation has a 2-year wind down, so a 2-year phase in gives us time to work on the replacement. This is what we told the American people we were going to do. This is what we passed last Congress. So let's put the same thing on President Trump's desk that we put on then President Obama's desk. It will be a different outcome. President Trump will sign it. Then we can come together and work on a replacement to deal with those key issues that will bring down premiums for middle-class families.
The criticism is casualties, that what you guys call tax savings really takes the form and practicality of subsidies and money that the most needy, the most vulnerable among your voters needs to support their health care, and you'd be taking all that.
Chris, the casualties are right now. Crawford County, Ohio, a county I get the privilege of representing, has no insurers in the exchange plans right now. The casualties are what Obamacare has done to premiums for middle-class and working-class families in the small group and individual market. Casualties is what we currently have. That's what has to change. That's what the American people elected Republicans to do in 2010, 2014,
right,
and, of course, last November. So let's just simply do what we said. Repeal it, then replace it. The president is exactly right. 2 separate bills. Do the first one. Have a wind-down period. During that wind-down period, work on the replacement to deal with. If you're accurate that this uncertainty is there, I think it's Obamacare is driving up the cost and driving up the uncertainty right now, not the fact that we haven't done legislation. But if you're right, we'll have time to work on a replacement. Let's do that strategy. Repeal and replace. In fact, Freedom Caucus, we introduced that same piece of legislation, that clean repeal, back during the House debate, back early this spring. We reintroduced that same, I reintroduced it, that same piece of legislation, that clean repeal. Let's focus on that.
Didn't it fail in part because it wasn't a good idea, even though it was a simple promise? It didn't make the situation better. How does pulling all of the subsidies and money that people need to finance their health care, how is taking all of that and passing it on to tax cuts to whomever you want, how does that make it better?
Chris, it's a good idea because it's what we told the American people we were going to do and what they elected us to do. And it always had, and it's the same thing we passed last Congress. If it was good enough last Congress, this is what drives American voters crazy. If it was good enough last Congress, why isn't it good enough this Congress when it really counts? So let's pass that. Let's call
why
it the
isn't
vote,
it, though?
And let's see.
Congressman, answer your own question. Why do you think all these senators in your party and House members in your party didn't like the reality of who that money was going to be taken away from?
Well, I think saying you don't want to vote on it is different than actually when it's put in front of you. I always tell people that's why they play the game on Friday night. If you just went with the conventional wisdom, the underdog would never win. So let's actually put it out there and see what happens when the roll call is actually called, when it's time to actually put up the vote, and see what members do in light of what they did last Congress, what they told the American people for 6 years they were going to do. So let's bring it up for a vote. If conventional wisdom would have been, the Super Bowl would have been over after 3 quarters last year, but the New England Patriots and Tom Brady didn't think that. So let's call up the vote and let's see what happens. I actually think there's a good chance it passes, which is, again, exactly what we told the American people we were going to do.
So what happens if you were to vote on a straight repeal and all that money is taken out of the system? Then in the interim between when you have that vote and how you figure out how to replace it, what happens to all those people who need the subsidies, who need Medicaid to get health care?
Chris, I'll say it for the 3rd time. The bill we passed last Congress, the same bill we reintroduced this Congress, has a 2-year time period on it, so that nothing changes in that 2-year time period. So but you've repealed it. and say effective date is in the future, but in that time period, then you now have the catalyst to actually get to the replacement. And I think, frankly, you might have the better ability to bring Democrats and Republicans together, like Senator McCain and others have talked about, to actually say, okay, here's some things we can do on Medicaid, here's some things we can do with the opioid problem, but at the same time, we want some of these key policy changes that we believe will bring down premiums, like easier formation of association health plans, like interstate shopping for insurance, like greater access and ability to use your health savings accounts.
Why don't you just pitch those instead of a straight repeal? Why don't you pitch the ideas for how to tighten up certain of the exchanges, mostly in states where they didn't expand Medicaid, and you don't have enough young people coming into the market, which is a fundamental problem with insurance. Why don't you do it that way instead of going straight repeal when it's so controversial?
Two things. We should talk about all that and try to bring that together. But the main thing I keep coming back to is, what did we tell the American people we were going to do? We told them we were going to repeal it. We know what it has caused. Crawford County, Ohio, in the 4th District of Ohio, which I represent, no exchange plans. We know how bad it is. So let's get that off the table.
Why are there no exchange plans in Crawford, Ohio?
Well, because of Obamacare. Like, it's so expensive right now. They're not even, there's no plan for them to even to go to if they're in the Obamacare exchange right now because of how bad this law is.
But don't the
That's
insurers,
why it has to change.
Don't the insurers that pulled out of there and the ones who refused to go in, don't they say there aren't enough young, healthy people in that county system for them to support the pricing model?
Well, you're right. That's one of the flaws of Obamacare is a lot of young, healthy people say, I'm not going to pay these exorbitant premiums. I'm not going to pay $400 a month for a $6,000 deductible plan. That's what we're trying to change. So let's get rid of the law and let's work on bringing back those things that will lower those premiums, giving more choice, allowing consumers to pick the kind of plan that actually fits their needs and their family's needs. That's what we're focused on doing. So let's do that approach again. After all, that's what we told the American people we were going to do. That's what they elected us to do.
I get it, but, you know, there's the impact of a promise also. But we'll have to see if this is the way forward for your party. If this is the way they go with this bill, we're going to come back to you and figure out what it means. Congressman?
Never hurts to do what you said, Chris. Never hurts to do what you said.
Well, that's true. Certainly in politics, delivering on a promise can have currency. It's always good to have you chew on the details.